Okay, we are rounding out the end of Hilchas Deos, chapter 4. So the Rambam gave his advice on many things regarding eating and bathing and bathroom habits. And now he's going to talk about sex. So children have to leave the room now. Of course, we're going to start Halacha Yud Tes. Halacha Yud Tes starts off Shechva Zera Hikoach Haguf V'chayav. He's talking about male sperm, which we call in Hebrew Shechva Zera. One of the beauties of the Hebrew language, and if you've been through, the Gemara and Shas, you know that anytime there are words or phrases that have to do with anatomy, obviously private parts, and any sexual innuendo, the Gemara masks it with all kinds of different words, right? And a lot of the commentators always make a point of saying it's called Lashon Nakiya. Like, for example, sex is called Bia, right? We call the private parts Oso Hamakom, and we Nashika, without getting into graphic details what all these words mean. But it's just a very colorful language that we don't like saying the actual words, even though there's nothing wrong with it, right? It's part of life. But even like, for example, sperm, we call it shechvat zera, which literally means, the lying seed, right? We call it seed. We know what it means, but it's just a point I wanted to make, that the Gemara stresses la'olam yadaber adam b'lashon nakiya. The problem is when boys are learning Gemara and the Rebbe talks about bia, and they don't really know what it means. They just think it's bia. You're coming in, so you have to at least explain to people what the term literally means, or else you have no concept what it means. But okay. Anyways, so now that I got that out of the way, so the Rambam talks about Shechva Zera as being the Koach HaGuf. It is the life force, believe it or not, of the male. Obviously, we're talking about males over here, not females, of the male body. Uma'or einayim, and it's the light of someone's eyes. Okay, v'chol sheteitze biyoter haguf, kale, v'kocho kale, v'chayev ovdim. And the more of it that comes out makes you literally have less strength and weaker, and you lose life. Again, this is very, very hard for us, intellectuals in the 21st century to understand. Obviously it makes you weaker and you're tired, or I don't know, I'm not speaking for myself, but I'm just saying in general that, it takes something out of you. But to say that you lose years of your life, that's what the Rambam is saying. So I don't want to, God forbid, criticize the Rambam. I just don't, I don't understand what he means all the time. So we'll just chalk it up to that. Obviously he's trying to make a point. I think he goes, though, a bit too far when he says v'chayav ovdim, because the Shulchan Aruch actually quotes this almost word for word. I don't think it says in the Shulchan Aruch v'chayav ovdim. Okay, anyways, Husha Amar Shlomo b'chachamo. So this is what the pasuk in Proverbs means when it says Al titen l'nashim chelecha. Don't give over your strength to women, meaning don't have so much sex in your life, because you're going to live shorter, right? The more you do it, the less you live, okay? And the Rambam makes a statement. He says, Kol hashatuf be'ila zikna kofetzes alav. If you're used to this and you're always involved in this act, you will become older. It'll age you. The kochot hashesh, and you become weaker, ve'ein of kehos, and you can't see as well. V'reach nodef mipiv, you end up getting bad breath. Umeshechyo, and you end up smelling in your armpits. Usa'ar rosho, and I'm just explaining this literally, so and just bear with me. Usa'ar rosho, and you'll lose your hair. V'gabos einav, v'rise einav noshos, and you literally lose your body hair, at least on your eyelids and on your eyebrows. However, usa'ar zakano, but your beard, v'shechyo, and your armpit hair, usa'ar raglov rabba. However, your pubic hair in your armpits and your leg hair actually grows longer. Okay, now this is not. Remember how I said the Rambam gets 99% of his things from the Gemara. As far as I remember, I could be wrong, but this is something I probably would have remembered. I'd like to say. So I don't think the Gemara has this. I think the Rambam is coming up with this. Sheen of no flows, his teeth fall out. Okay, he has to wear dentures, nebuch. And he's going to be living in pain, and he's going to be in and out of hospitals. Amru Chachmei Harofim, the doctors of the Rambam's time had this following slogan: Echad me'elef meis b'sha'ar chalaim, ve'elef merov hatashmish. I have a lot of good jokes I could say on this line, but being that this is halacha and Torah, we're not going to make jokes from 8 to 8:15. You could call me after, but this is the line. He says 1 out of 1,000 would die from a random ailment. The elef, but 1,000 of 1,000 would die from too much sex. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Therefore, because I'm telling you that sex is more lethal than cancer, than you name it, if you want to live a nice long life, gufo bari. So here's my suggestion to you, says the Rambam: have bia only when you are healthy, v'chazak biyoter, and you could handle it. So now we get a little into the details, but he says basically that the trick, is to. I hope my parents aren't on now. This is one of those things that you dread, but this is Torah, right? There's a Gemara in Brachos Daf Samach Aleph, I think and it's also in Chagiga Daf Gimel. And Shmuel, don't bet me on this, where it talks about Rav Kahana and Rav. I think it was Rav Kahana. He wanted to see how his Rebbe was in bed. Because he wanted to know, how is a Talmud Chacham supposed to have sexual intercourse? So he hid under his bed. And midway, either Rav or Rav's mate, caught Rav Kahana, and he says, "What do you want? Torah ani tzarech?" He says, "I have to learn. I have to know how it's done." I mean, just thinking about it. I mean, okay, all right. It's mentioned twice in Shas. Anyways, so getting back to this, so therefore, the Rambam is going to talk now about erections. He says that the trick is to have the erection shalola daito, not when you're thinking about your mates. Meaning that's when the best time, to spawn, so to speak. Umasiach atzmo ladavar acher. Think about something else. And if it happens, it happens. But try not to put your mind on the act. V'imtza kovad mimasnav. And if you can't help yourself because you feel it, ulamata uki'ilu chute habeitzim nimshachim. You feel the chutim, which are the veins in your beitzim, are stretching, ubisoro cham, and you're getting like a dog in heat. Zet tzarach libol urafua lo shayibol. The Rambam says, you know what? Throw in the towel. that's a sign that it's time to mate. Okay, and it's a refuah, and the Rambam says you better do it, or else you're going to explode. Without going into detail, we all understand what this means on some level. V'lo yibol adam v'hu saveya. Okay, so that's what the Rambam suggests. Again, this is all refuah, right? It all harkens back to his point, refuah related. So v'lo yivol adam v'hu saveh. Now the Rambam's going to discuss, just like he talked about the shower and the this and right, all the other bodily functions. You always have to be careful when you do what you do. Okay, so here he focuses on bia. So because we're talking about bia, what state do you have to be on? V'lo yivol adam v'hu saveh v'lo ra'ev. Right? You can't be too full or too hungry. We had this many times. The Rambam loves to do things, right? Everything you do in life, no matter what it is, you can't be too full and you can't be too hungry. You have to be right in the middle. And you have to check yourself, make sure you don't have to go to the bathroom midway. And you can't do it sitting, you can't do it standing. Okay, this Rambam is a little problematic because there's a famous Gemara in the Durham Daf Chaf that compares a woman to a fish. And just like when you get fish from the market, you could do whatever you want to your wife. And the Rambam paskins like that in Hilchas Isurei Bia. So I don't know why over here. This is just my own kasha I have on the Rambam. But okay, not for now. No bia allowed in the bathhouse. And not on a day when you go to the bathhouse. Remember bloodletting from yesterday? Bia is not good when you, right? Because again, bia makes you weak. Hakaza makes you weak. Not a good thing to do. And not when you are going out. And not when you're coming back from a trip. Not a day before and not after a day you're leaving to a trip. Again, I don't understand this because we know that the Gemara in Ksuvas, right, where it talks about how often I used to have bia, and it says that right before you leave, right, your wife for a while, you should do it. I'm not sure how this Rambam jives with that Mishnah, but I just want to make another comment. I mean, there's so much to say about this. I'll just leave you with one thought, being that 3/6 of this audience are females. This is all directed to the men, right? Shachvazera, it makes you, right? Everything is in Lashon, right? Is in Lashon Zachar, right? It doesn't give any directive, at least to the woman. Meaning it doesn't tell you what state the woman should be in. Do we care? I don't know. I don't want to get a little controversial, but it just seems from here that the directive over here is to the man and not to the woman. It says lo yibol adam v'hu saveh v'lo rayev, right? It's the directive is to the male. It's to the right, not the female. Do we care about her health? I hope we do. But all right, before I got myself in trouble. We'll do number 20. Kol hamanhig atzmo b'drachim ela shehorinu. Whoever behaves the way I have described in the last, 17 halachos, ani arevlo. Again, this is a really, really difficult Rambam because the Rambam over here is going out on a limb and he's saying that if you listen to what I tell you, the word arev is like a cosigner, right? The word in Hebrew to guarantee someone is mu'urav, al-rev, right? I guarantee you, says the Rambam, that this is a fail-safe method to the best health. Ani arev lo she'enu bali de choli kol yamav. You will not ever get sick. Ad sheyasken harba v'yamus. You will never become ill, only until, not going to live forever, but you'll live to a ripe old age, and then you'll die. There's no hospital, there's no Social Security, there's no Medicare, Part A, B, C, D, nothing to worry about. No hospice, you'll live to 120 and die in your sleep. Very, very difficult to understand. V'yehegufo shalom v'omed al buryav, and you'll be and you'll be complete and you'll be healthy all your days, right? You won't need a doctor. And the Rambam puts in one condition. He says, "You this is a failsafe, but yeah, like this is unbelievable." Ella imkan haya gufo ra mitchilas briyaso. The only exception is if you were born with some kind of ailment or something that's going to trigger that you can't get rid of. So this is basically saying, like, if you're predestined to get cancer, you see, this is where this whole cancer thing comes in here and says, what are you talking about? We know people who, you know, how many stories you hear of people who are in the best health and like whatever, right? They just don't wake up one day, right, when they're 42 and like no one knows what happened. So how does that jive with this Rambam? Right? You eat well, you do this, you do that, you listen to everything the Rambam says, and we know cases. I mean, you don't have to go far. I mean, my wife, nothing was wrong with her. So I mean, this Rambam particularly hits home because you think that you take care of yourself and you're immune to this, and you could be here one day and gone the next, or at least here one day and completely change the next. So the Rambam's only failsafe sounds like, well, unless there was something wrong when you were born and it stayed inside of you, and no matter what you do, right, you can never get rid of it. I don't care how much you work out and how many times you go to the Beis HaMerchatz and follow all my instructions. So this is a very, very difficult Rambam. I'm sorry. Okay. Anyways, I don't want this to turn into a Tuesday night, but there's a lot of fundamental problems with this. However, we have to continue. Or if you are accustomed to doing bad habits from birth, so no matter how much exercise and how much you listen to me, you do, whatever you did when you were young stuck with you, and this immunity that you think you have is not real. Otavo makas dever o makas betzuras laolam. The other exception is if there was some kind of plague or some kind of drought in the world that you can't be saved from, no matter how much you try to safeguard yourself and listen to all my rules. So we have to stop here. Can I do another one?
Let's leave something for Monday. Otherwise, we'll have nothing on Monday.
Oh, we got a lot more. I got a lot more editorial